Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next video series. This one is going to be on the King's Indian Defense. I have a new book for you. Check this out. This is Ilya Smirin's King's Indian Warfare. Ilya was in almost the top 10 in the world, maybe top 15, maybe as close as top 11, about a decade ago. He's a very counter-attacking type player, very dynamic, fairly tactical. So, what better an author to present many games on the King's Indian Defense, which is so versatile itself. I'm excited to get started, so let's get right into it. This game was played in 1998 against Alexander Belyavsky. Now, the author notes he has lost a number of games to Belyavsky at this point, always gave him a difficult time. So this was a special game, a little bit of revenge for Ilya. And the game starts normal enough, like any other King's Indian. White takes a big center, and black is just fianchettoing his bishop. And one of the lines that black goes for is he plays this knight to d7 in order to prepare c5. In King's Indian type structures, black often has the option to either break on c5 or e5, where actually e5 is the more traditional, and some people associate the c5 break with more of a Benoni structure. So he's going for a different approach because he hadn't had much luck with these e5 breaks. And I've seen that c5 is often more congruent with a pawn break against this white bishop pinning the knight here. The reason being, if we try to go for an e4 break, there's often some complications. Maybe, this knight would be then pinning, the bishop would be pinning our knight to the queen if we move this pawn. So this is just nice here. And the knight jumps in with tempo, threatening to win the bishop pair, which is not a huge threat. Conceding the bishop pair at this point is not such a big deal because the bishop's blocked in by the white pawns, and it's not clear how black can take advantage of this right away. So everything is going according to plan for white so far. And now that we've broken on the c5 square with our pawn, it's very common for black to want to expand on the queen side rather than go for this king side attack, at least right away, which makes sense. You want to play in the area where you have more space on the board. So that's what this a6 move is setting up. Now, white is preventing this, and we have a bit of a novelty. This is an unusual continuation. Now black is preparing to play along the f file. So it's just interesting to see in this game, black's playing on both sides of the board. And if we get an f5, we're going to have pressure against white's f2 pawn. So, opening up a file for a rook, and we're going to see. We still have this pin to deal with. And so first we kick the bishop away. We don't want this any pawns being too loose, any tactical problems. And we go for a break. And what's nice is white's queen happens to be on this square. Sometimes black will play this capture, and notice we have two pieces on a square where white it could be threatening in some lines to advance to g4, forking our pieces. But right now we have this tempo on the queen. Notice before, which was induced by our knight capturing on the square. And so we just come back now that the queen is out of the way. We don't want that fork to be a problem. And this is a very nice square for the knight. Black may be inclined to give away his other bishop, which he does. And now we have pressure against the knight and the pawn in this position. Even though the queen is entering and looks like winning a pawn, black has a very nice tactic here. We sacrifice the bishop, and the pawn is overloaded. This is fairly normal stuff. I would consider this easy level tactics for the King's Indian. So if you think this is difficult, just hold on. Once the pawn, if the pawn captures our bishop, we take the rook. I'm sorry, we take the knight with our rook, rather. And the white king is feeling a little exposed here, and it's unclear. Both players have some complications, and this is a very nice move by white. The rook on this a3 square is going to be able to participate in the attack, possibly, but also it's going to be able to do some defensive stuff. Sometimes we see this from the black side, where we lift the queen's rook up, and it could do something very similar. And so we start to pile on a little more pressure. This turns out to be a mistake. It was not capitalized on in the game, but there's an idea for white to sacrifice the exchange with his rook and then bring the knight in. And there's actually a very difficult initiative for black to deal with. Ilya got a little lucky, and white did not see the exchange sacrifice right away, choosing to just bring his knight into the e4 square to attempt to coordinate with his queen for some pressure over here. Now we just bring back, and it looks like the rook is activating and getting in. And we're setting up, we're allowing the other rook to get into the game, and it's still a battle back and forth. And here, I won't spoil it right away, but the author, Ilya, is actually setting a very clever trap by lifting his rook up to this square. We're going to see what he's up to. He saw that white could take this, and this is very complicated. You can't really take this knight. If you take this knight, then the bishop, remember this bishop over here, the pawn was overloaded? Well, this pawn is overloaded protecting the bishop because it's double attacked. And white was anticipating, probably, for black to take, and then white takes back. But we have this in-between move. We bring the rook to the g-file, and I think you can all see where this is going. The king is not... The white king is exposed on this g-file if the g-pawn was to move out of the way. So what are we playing at here? Now white goes for this exchange sacrifice. But now we take the knight, and we have this sudden coordination, right? We have the queen and the rook coordinating on the f2 square. That would be a devastating check. And white was banking on recapturing this rook here, but he can't anymore, because if he recaptures this rook, we're going to open up the file with check. And now all of a sudden the queen is rushing in, and this is going to be devastating. So white has to defend. He has to come back, and even though white is up a pawn right now, the initiative that black is going to gain is going to decide this game. We take the pawn, and the rooks and the queen are all coming to life. It's really black who's in the driver's seat right now. Let's see how he converts this. Trying to trade off more pieces, but after this check, we don't want to trade off the queens just yet. White begging for a queen trade. Now we have this battery. Well, we can't lose a piece, so we have to come back. And here's the nail in the coffin. Rook g5 check. White resigned in this position because the king has to get out of check. His only option is to move out of the way, and then this d pawn is going to fall. And there's simply no way to save, for white to save this position. His king is exposed to so many checks. Black's going to be the one who's up material and has the initiative. So there's going to be a simple conversion process. Black can begin to trade off some pieces, and black's either going to checkmate white right away, or as we convert down into a winning endgame, black's just going to have a pawn up, and he's going to make a new queen. And that's the end of this game. Thank you to everybody who made it this far in the video. Really looking forward to going over the rest of the games in King's Indian Warfare. The King's Indian Defense is such a rich and dynamic opening. You can't fully appreciate how complex it is unless you look at a whole bunch of games where different things are happening from both sides. So, looking forward to seeing the rest of y'all in the future videos and in the next one. Y'all take it easy.